MLB trade deadline season is upon us, so I thought that was the perfect time to introduce my new MLB Trade Value Rankings. Trade Value Rankings are a pretty popular thing. I know Bill Simmons has made it pretty popular in the NBA. There are some other places that do baseball ones as well. Fangraphs has one that they update, I think, once a year. There's a great site called Baseball Trade Values that does a more like analytical modeling approach to trade value rankings. But I've tried to stay clear of both of those this year because I wanted to introduce my own. And so this is going to be my inaugural MLB Trade Value Ranking. I'm going to probably update it twice a year. I'll update it usually around this time, and then I'll also do an update in the MLB offseason to really try to encapsulate the trade rankings and the trade values of players in the MLB. So if you want to see more, if you want to see these updates, make sure to subscribe. Not only will I do semi-annual updates to the MLB ones, I'm also going to be doing NBA trade value rankings. I'm going to do an NFL trade value rankings. So if you like trade value rankings, make sure to subscribe. But if you'd like to see other stuff as well, I've got plenty more. So make sure to like and subscribe. And let's get started with introducing my first annual trade value list. Let's start with the rules. And this is going to be the rules or the logic behind this approach. Let me start off just by saying, in reality, this whole exercise is just a thought experiment. It's just kind of silly in its own right because, yes, a lot of these players are never going to be traded. There's really not a lot of point in comparing some of these top guys, but it's a fun exercise, gives us kind of an idea. So I will just say that right off the bat. The main rule and the main logic behind this is contracts and age matter, not just ability. This isn't just a ranking based on a player's ability. Yes, ability plays a factor. You still have to be a great player, but contract and age matters. This isn't just the list of the best players in 2025. The second big rule, or the second piece of logic that is where the MLB is going to differentiate a little bit, is because they don't have a salary cap, the biggest factor to me is contract length. And that differs a little bit from the NBA, differs a little bit from the NFL, where, yes, in the NBA, if you have a star that's being overpaid, that is a really bad thing. Think guys like Bradley Beal, where their contract is just so bad, they really have a negative trade value. MLB isn't quite like that. And yes, there are players that are overpaid. You can think of examples like a Bradley Beal. But to me, where this makes a bigger difference is think of just good stars. Think of somebody on the NBA side like a Zach LaVine, like even young guys like Scotty Barnes, who are being paid a lot, but are still good players. In the NBA, they might not have a ton of trade value because they're being paid a lot. I don't know if that's a good thing. In the MLB, there's no salary cap. Doesn't matter if you're being paid a lot. MLB teams, in theory, can take on that salary. Now, the reality is a lot of teams don't. So contract size does matter. $50, $60, $70 million contracts. Not everybody can take those on. But the big thing is contract length. How long before your player is going to be a free agent is basically the biggest factor. Number 3 is trades would be considered in a vacuum. Team needs aren't a factor. Think of an example like the Mariners calling up the Baltimore Orioles and saying, hey, we'll trade you George Kirby for Adley Rutschman. You can argue who you'd rather have, who says no. You'll see in a little bit. I have both of those guys ranked. You can see who I thought is a little bit higher. In reality, the Mariners wouldn't trade for Adley Rutschman because they have Cal Raleigh, but that's not a factor in these rankings. So trades are considered in a vacuum. And then number 4 kind of just explains the whole thing. It's based on value. It's based on 1-for-1 trades and basically just deciding who says no first. In the example I just gave, George Kirby for Adley Rutschman, which team says no first? And again, this isn't just based on ability, contract, age, all of that is a factor. It's kind of the whole concept of a trade value. So with those rules in mind, let's get to the actual rankings. I have 100 players I'm going to mention. I'm not going to rank all 100. I have 12 impending free agents. They may or may not make the list in future iterations. Those 12 guys, though, are going to be free agents at the end of the year. They don't really have any value because they won't be under contract. So those 12, I will just kind of mention at the top. And then I have 38 honorable mentions before I rank the top 50, going from 50 all the way to the number 1 ranked player. So let's get into it. Let's first put up the list of names of impending free agents. We'll call these guys just not applicable. Some of these guys, like obviously Kyle Tucker, he would be ranked pretty high. And whether it's the Cubs, whether it's another team that gives him a contract, whenever he gets a long-term contract, he will be high on this list. Other guys like a Bo Bichette, Framber Valdez, they would also be considered. So a lot of these guys you will see in future iterations. But let's get to honorable mentions next. And I am not ranking these guys, so these are just in random orders. I've kind of grouped them together and I'm just saying them alphabetically. So they aren't ranked, but just some guys to mention. The first two groups I have up are the closers. And I have them grouped between kind of younger closers, think in their, mid to late 20s, and then the older closers who are past 30. But essentially these five guys I think are the highest ranked closers. I just had a hard time putting closers on the list. I think they're just a little too volatile. Even some of the elite guys. I mean, we see Mason Miller is still having a good year, but not a great year as he's had. Same thing with Emmanuel Clase. If he ever pitches again, as of right now, he may never pitch again. So to me, relievers are just a little too volatile. I almost had Clase and Mason Miller, but they just missed the cut. Obviously, Clase wouldn't be on the list anyways right now. So closers I wanted to mention right off the bat. Next two groups I have up. The first one is just guys I can't quite trust yet. I just want to see a little bit more. Michael Busch, Hunter Goodman, having great years for their respective teams. I just want to see a little bit more. Couldn't quite put them on the list. Geraldo Perdomo, of the four guys, probably has the biggest track record. I still don't quite trust it. Couldn't get him on the list, but I think he's worth mentioning. And then Kyle Stowers, he might be one that shoots up. If he continues the great season he's having in Miami, I think he could make the top 50 next iteration. So he's one to watch. And then the next group of three is three guys that have plenty of tools, are really interesting, but there's some question marks. So that's the category. Young and promising, but ... And I think O'Neal Cruz is probably the captain of this category because he's 6'7". He has all the tools. He has a ton of StatCast records, but is he a good baseball player? They're still up for debate, and others may like him more than I do. I think he has potential. He's still relatively young, but I haven't seen enough of him being a really good baseball player to put him in the top 50, so he falls just short. Same thing with Mackenzie Gore. In theory, he's a good pitcher, and he's made a lot of improvements. He's still young. He does only have a couple years left on his deal, so I just couldn't quite get there. I thought there were question marks, some of it not due to him, just due to his contract, and then question marks of really what he's going to be. Is he turning into an ace pitcher, or is he kind of a middle of the rotation guy that maybe is going to get paid a little bit too much? I had questions. And then Luis Robert is probably the co-captain with O'Neal Cruz of this category. A lot of tools, a big name, has had a ton of promise. Thought maybe he might be a top 5 player in this ranking a couple years ago. But alas, he's not. He kind of fell off. I don't even know if he deserves an honorable mention, but I think he still has some trade value, so he was worth on this list. He actually might get traded. Maybe by the time you're watching it, he did get traded, but he's not really a top 50 guy anymore. Next group of honorable mentions. The top 4 guys, I think, are on the right track, and they're similar to the last group where I just need to see a little bit more. And these are young guys and some rookies that I like what I see. I just need to see a little bit more. And I think in particular, Jacob Wilson would have been on this list, but unfortunately he slowed down a little bit, and we find out it's because he fractured his arm, which I'm sure makes it a lot more difficult to hit a baseball. But he's having a good year. Cam Smith having another good rookie year. Mason Wynn, nice talented young shortstop for St. Louis. Wyatt Langford, again, has a lot of promise. So all 4 of these guys, in theory, could be in the top 50 in the next iteration. They just missed the cut right now. And then a trio of catchers. I'm going to talk more catchers when we get to the rankings. These 3 didn't quite make the cut, but we're kind of the second tier of catchers, or really third tier of catchers if we're breaking it out that way. All good catchers, just didn't quite make the list. Next group of honorable mentions is a bunch of really good pitchers. I didn't really have key reasons for leaving them off. I think these are all quality pitchers. under decent contracts, either long-term or at least have a few more years of control. I just didn't get as excited. And frankly, top 50 is really hard to crack anyways. Max Fried has been a great pitcher for a while. Freddie Peralta is having a great season. Joe Ryan also having a great season. Gavin Williams, still in his mid-20s, has a lot of potential for Cleveland. So 4 good pitchers, and you could make the case for a lot of these guys. The top 50 is just, there's only 50 guys. So there's going to be just some great hitters, great pitchers that just don't make the list. I think these 4 are just 4 unfortunate omissions. And then the 3 good veterans. Rafael Devers actually just got traded, Manny Machado, and Matt Olson. These are 3 big names, and you might be shocked that they didn't make the top 50, but that's the point of trade value. Devers is the youngest. We also saw him get traded for not as much as you would think, so he's kind of trending downward. And then Manny Machado's 33 years old at this point. Matt Olson is in his 30s. All 3 are still good players. They just might not be superstars. Their names might be a little bit bigger than their ability. Still really good players. They just didn't quite make the list. And then 2 single player categories. The first one is Juan Soto. And Juan Soto signed a $765 million contract. I mentioned at the top that contract size doesn't necessarily matter. But when you pay a player $765 million, that's going to pretty much take out every team in the MLB. And so just think about it. If the Mets were like, we want to trade Juan Soto for whatever reason, what team would trade for him? The Yankees would probably trade for him back. The Dodgers would consider it. The Giants maybe, just because they've been wanting to spend money. Outside of that, I don't know who else would trade for him and trade for a $765 million contract. I don't care how good you are. If you're being paid that much, it's going to be really hard to have any sort of trade value. And you have to have a very specific reason. And I say that because we are going to get to another $700 million player that is going to be on this list. You have to have a very specific reason to justify your trade value. And I don't think Juan Soto has that. And that comes from somebody that's been as high as probably anybody can be on Juan Soto. I think he's a historic hitter. He's just being paid a little bit too much. He kind of broke the bank. He's not on this list. You could argue it, but I just didn't want to go there. And then Cole Ragans, I was really high on this year. He unfortunately got hurt, had a down year. I think he could get right back on this list, but he's been out for most of the year, so we're going to leave him off. And then 2 more honorable mention groups. One of them is just a bunch of young prospects who have just started. Chase Burns, Jack Caglione, 2 really exciting minor league guys. Haven't quite hit their stride. I'm going to take them off for now. We could see them coming on if they perform a little bit better. Dylan Cruz, Jackson Holiday. Again, 2 high-profile, big names. Didn't quite get off to the start that they wanted. So we're going to leave them off. I think their trade value is a little bit lower than it was. And then Marcelo Mayer just came up to the Red Sox. Hasn't started off great, but again, it's way early. So all of these guys too early to tell. And this is also a perfect time to say I'm not including minor leaguers in this. Yes, a few top prospects may make this list. I'm not including them. We're just talking major leagues. Maybe at some point we can add them in, but right now, just major leaguers. And then my last group is the quality hitters. Just like I mentioned on the pitching side, the top 50 is tough. These 5 guys are great hitters. I just didn't quite have them on the list. Stephen Kwan may have been traded as you're watching this. Austin Riley's been a good hitter. Brent Ricker, Seiya Suzuki, great hitters, but they're also primary DHs now. Dansby Swanson, another good hitter, just didn't quite make the list. So those were my 38 honorable mentions. Let's get into the top 50. And just like you've seen, if you've read Bill Simmons' article on trade value rankings, if you've read, I think Fangraphs does the same, I'm going to group these guys. So not only am I going to rank them, they're going to be in their own groups or own tiers. So let's start it off with Group P. That is the injury-riddled stars. And I have 2 guys on this list. Byron Buxton is number 50, and Corey Seager is number 49. 2 great players. And if injuries were turned off, these guys would be really high on the list. But both of them struggle to stay healthy. They're both 31, so they're not getting any younger. And you could make the case really either way, because when they play, they're great. Corey Seager, he's been an MVP type player, but he's only had 2 full seasons since 2019. So you could make the case that he shouldn't be on this list. You could make this case he could probably be even higher. Same thing with Byron Buxton. He's only played 100 games once since 2017, and that was last year when he played 102 games. So he basically just doesn't play 162 games, doesn't even play close. But the problem is, or the good thing is, I guess, when he plays, he's an elite player. He just doesn't stay on the field. So again, you could argue Byron Buxton shouldn't be on this list. You could argue he should be a little bit higher. I put him right at the end. I think these are two talented players that would have a lot of interest. You just know you're only getting 100 or so games out of them. The next group is Group O. These are the catchers. And I have two guys on this list. Think of this as the tier 2 of catchers. I have William Contreras at number 48 and Adley Rutschman at number 47. Contreras has had a little bit of a down year, but he's still one of the best catchers out there. Been a little bit overshadowed by a couple catchers that we will name later on in these rankings. And then Adley Rutschman, arrow definitely pointing downward in terms of trade value. If we would have done this a year ago, if we would have done this 2 years ago, he would have been a top 10 trade value candidate. The problem is he's not young anymore. He and William Contreras are surprisingly the same age. I was surprised at that when I saw that. And he's had 2 great years, the first 2 years when he came up. And now he's followed up with 2 kind of average years. He's not a bad catcher, but just where we thought he would be, the expectations were so high that it seems like he's really bad. So he's still a good catcher. Maybe he figures it out. But again, he's not getting any younger. So I think this is just kind of what he is, which is fine, just not what we thought it would be. The next group I have is Group N. I'm labeling this group the intriguing pieces. 3 guys that are intriguing in lots of different ways. They could fall off in a year or 2, or they could keep rising. And at number 46, I have George Kirby. Number 45, Jeremy Pena. And number 44, Ceddanne Rafaela. George Kirby has been injured this year. Kind of been a rough year since. I think he's starting to get it back. But he's had 3 straight years, ERAs in the mid-3s. He's always one of the best control pitchers. He's always just one that you can rely on outside of this year to just take the bump every 5 days, give you a good start. And he's only 27. So you have him for a few more years. He's reliable. And I think he still has some more potential if he can stay healthy. So I think he deserves on this list, albeit a little bit lower than he probably was the last few years. Jeremy Pena, he was having a breakout year until he unfortunately injured his ribs. If not, I may have had him even higher. And he's someone that has just been a solid shortstop for the Astros ever since he took over for Correa. But this was the year that I finally saw what he actually could be. Because before, obviously solid player, his wins above replacement has always been pretty solid. But his OPS has always been in the low 700s. This year it's jumped to 847, which is legit good hitter. So combine that with good defense and you have a legitimate shortstop who's only 27. Arrow is pointing up. Hopefully he can get healthy. And then number 44, Ceddanne Rafaela. He is an elite fielder. And we knew that all the way from the minors. He's been a great center fielder for Boston, assuming they keep him in center field. I think there were rumors they would move him, but he's an elite fielder wherever he plays. He can play second, he can play third, he can play short, he can probably play wherever. This year is, though, the first time he's actually been a good hitter. And so he has potential to get a 2020 season. His OPS is right around 800. If he can be that kind of hitter and be an elite fielder, that's a really good player. And so again, somebody who's really intriguing. He's not 25 yet. It's an intriguing piece. Can he keep going up or does he kind of stay around this? I don't know, but I think arrow pointing up for him. Next group is Group M that I have labeled just the big names. And if you're just a casual baseball fan, you're probably going to know a lot of these guys. Number 43 is Mookie Betts. And if I had arrows, and if I had done this a year ago, arrow is definitely pointing down on Mookie Betts, which is unfortunate. He's one of the best players and has been one of the best players. He's one of my personal favorite players. Seems like a great guy. He's not had a good year. He's not had a good year by his standards. It's not been terrible. But when you compare it to 2 years ago, when he was second in MVP, he had an 8.6 WAR. He was still the best of the best. A little bit injured last season, so we'll call it a down year. This year, though, his OPS is below 700. He only has 11 home runs, and he's only 32, so it's not like he's 36 and is just kind of falling off. I don't want to totally count him out. I think he can bounce back. I didn't want to fully put him off these rankings, but if he has another bad year next year, it just may be who he is, which is, again, unfortunate. He's been a great player, seems like a great guy, but I had to put him at 43. 42 is Bryce Harper, and 41 is Trey Turner. We'll put them together. Two really good players. Bryce Harper, he's not quite the same player he was in his prime. He's not like an MVP candidate anymore, but still a really good player. And surprisingly, he's still only 32 years old, despite it seems like he's been in the league for 20 years. And then same thing with Trey Turner. He's just a really good shortstop. He's not, to me, quite the level of some of the elite shortstops, but he's probably right below it. And even though he's 32, he's still going to give you like a 3 to 5 win season, good defense. He's going to give you like a 2020 season or thereabouts. So two Phillies that are just good players. You're getting good value for the contract. They're still big names. And then number 40 is Yordan Alvarez, who is the youngest player of this group. He's only 28. And he was one of the harder players I had to rank because on the one hand, again, he's only 28. And to me, he's probably a top 5 hitter in baseball. And that's not an exaggeration. I would have Aaron Judge ahead of him. I would probably have Ohtani ahead of him. When he's healthy, I don't know who else I would have definitively above him. That's how good of a player he is. He had a 959 OPS last year. That was the worst of his last 3 years. He had an OPS over 1,000 the year before. So he is an elite hitter, and that's the good news. The bad news is he's really just a DH at this point. He can kind of play left field. It's not great. So he's only a DH, and he's had some injury trouble. And he's been out most of this year with a broken hand. So, yeah, a guy who's not really going to benefit you in any other way than hitting, and a guy that struggles to stay on the field. It's not a great combination. So I didn't really know where to put him. If you want to put him lower because you haven't seen him play, that's fine. If you want to put him higher because he's 28 and an elite hitter, I agree with you. But I think because of his up and down year, because of his injuries, I think we got to put him at 40, make him prove his way back up. Next group is Group L. These are the ace-like pitchers. I don't know if I quite call them aces, or at least quite call them aces right now, but they are ace-like. They are right on that cusp. Number 39, I have Yoshinobu Yamamoto. 38, Hunter Green. 37, Logan Webb. And 36, Hunter Brown. I know some people might not have Yamamoto on this list because he has a $300 million contract, but he's actually had a good first 2 years in the MLB. He's got a 2.6 ERA this year. Both seasons have had a FIP, fielding independent pitching, under 3, and he's only 26. So yes, he signed a big contract. I think it's worth it though. I think has the potential even to grow into more of an elite pitcher. Speaking of growing into elite pitching, Hunter Green, I had thoughts maybe he might win Cy Young. He was kind of my dark horse candidate. He got hurt this year, but he's had back-to-back years now under 3 ERA. He's only 26. I think the arrow is pointing up. Didn't quite want to put him higher. He's been hurt, but I think he has the chance to keep rising in these rankings. Logan Webb, he's only 28. He's about to be 29. I'm convinced that he doesn't exist at some point, just the way that nobody talks about him. And yet he just every year has an ERA in the 3s, and every year just leads the league or it gets close in innings pitched. He's really good. He's not elite, but he's that kind of next tier down, and he just always pitches. And he's surprisingly still in his 20s. So I couldn't really justify putting him up that much higher, but he just pitches, and he just gives you great season after great season. I had to put him up here in this group. And then Hunter Brown is having a breakout year. It's tailed off a little bit the last few weeks, but his ERA is finally down in the 2.5 range. I think it was up in like the 4 or 5s when he first came up. He's consistently getting better. Now he's looking like a future ace for the Astros, assuming he kind of figures it out the rest of the season. He will probably keep rising as well. Group K, I have labeled still elite. This is a group of players that are getting a little bit older, but are still elite players. And number 35, I have Will Smith. Number 34, Ketel Marte. And number 33, Francisco Lindor. Will Smith, another catcher. I'm going to save all my catching talk for one more catcher that we have towards the top of these rankings. Will Smith is now 30 years old, but he's batting .325 as a catcher. I don't really know what to do with that. 30 years old as a catcher, a little bit older, but he's having a breakout year for somebody who's already been a good catcher. So you could say that he might have even more value because he's a catcher. But again, we'll save that talk. I put him kind of in this middle group. Ketel Marte, Francisco Lindor, two great elite middle infielders. Lindor was second in MVP last year. Ketel Marte was third. They're both getting towards 32, but they are still two of the better players in the National League. Francisco Lindor has almost had back-to-back 30-30 seasons. Ketel Marte is having potentially his best year yet this year, despite being third in MVP last year. I think at some point it's going to tail off a little bit for them, but they're still this good. I don't care that they're 32. They deserve to be potentially even higher. The next group is Group J. I'm calling these the stud pitchers. These are pitchers that are just really good and for one reason or the other may not be higher, but right now are some of the best pitchers in the league. And none better than number 32, Tarik Skubal. And before you say, why is Tarik Skubal 30 seconds? He should be top 10. He's the only player on this list that only has 1 year left on his deal. I mentioned at the top, there are no free agents on this list for just obvious reasons. But Tarik Skubal only has 1 year left. So in whatever world where he does get traded, a team would trade him for only 1 year. He doesn't have a long-term deal. And so because of that, his value just can't be that much higher. And I was kind of figuring out where I wanted to put him. This seemed like a good spot. Once he gets a long-term contract, he will vault up. But right now, he only is under contract for a year. He's the only player on this list. But 32 seems like a great spot because to me, he's the best pitcher or at least number 2 in the league. And I don't really need to talk about him. Tarik Skubal, number 32. 31, I have Zach Wheeler. Again, an elite pitcher and has been an elite pitcher for a long time. He is under contract for a couple years. He's also 35. So two elite pitchers that have some things going against them. Tarik Skubal's contract, Zach Wheeler's age. Because of that, they wouldn't get just an elite trade value because of it, like some of the pitchers that we'll talk about, but still two of the elite pitchers in the game. Number 30 is Wheeler's teammate Christopher Sanchez, who's having a breakout year. Should have been an all-star. His ERA is in the 2.5s. Don't know why he wasn't, but that's for another conversation. He had a good year last year, but a big breakout year this year. He's only 28. He's under contract until 2031. So I have him above his teammate, two great pitchers in the Phillies organization. And then number 29 is another Mariners pitcher. I have Logan Gilbert at 29. He's dealt with injuries this year, so you could say maybe he should be a little bit lower, but I still think when he's healthy, he is one of the best, I'll say young in quotes because he's now 28, but best kind of younger pitchers in the league. His ERA has been in the low 3s the last few years. I thought he had a good chance to be a Cy Young candidate until he got hurt this year. You could say maybe he should drop down a little bit. I think if he gets, a full year healthy, he will vault right back up in these rankings. That's how good of a pitcher I think he is. Group I are the rising stars. These are the guys that are maybe not superstars, not the youngest superstars in the league, but they are arrow pointing up. They are the rising stars in this league. 28, I have Zach Neto. 27, CJ Abrams. Two really good shortstops. Zach Neto has quietly put together back-to-back 5 WAR seasons, and he could go 20-30 this year as well. So kind of quietly, because the Angels are just kind of a mess, just out on the side. Zach Neto has turned into a really promising, good young player. And then CJ Abrams is the first of a couple Juan Soto trade nationals that we will see on this list. He has 20-40 potential. We know he has the speed. He's still not yet 25. So I think there's more to grow. And when he was a part of the Juan Soto deal, he was a big highlight of that trade. I think he still has more. So I think he's still rising, but 27 seems like a good spot for him. Number 26 is the latest Mariners pitcher. This time it's Brian Wu. He's been the breakout pitcher for the Mariners this year. Logan Gilbert's been hurt. George Kirby's been hurt. but Luis Castillo is still there. Bryce Miller is also missed most of the year. Brian Wu has been the breakout star. And I don't want to say just out of nowhere because he's been trending this way. We just needed to see a full season of it. And this is finally the year. He was a first-time All-Star, ERA under 3, and it looks like he's only going to get better because he's only 25. So he is a rising star. He just needs to stay healthy. If he does, he could keep climbing this list. And then number 25 is Riley Green. It took a little bit of time, but this season is really why they drafted him number 6 overall in 2019. This is the Riley Green we thought we'd see. Just took a little time. But he's on pace to bat 275, 35 home runs. He's going to be one of the best left fielders in the league for a while. He's not quite 25 years old. He's going to be good for a while. He's probably only going to rise up these rankings if he continues. Group H is the first of 2 single player groups I have, and that's a group for Spencer Strider, who is number 24. He's also another player that I had a lot of time considering. Do I put him up even higher? Should I put him even lower? He was one of the most electric players for a couple years. He was the player before Paul Skeens, before Jacob Mizorowski. He was the big ace, the big exciting electric pitcher. And I say that sounding like it was a decade ago. That was only like 2 years ago. He was 24 in 2023. He was 20-5, 13.5 strikeouts per 9. He did have an ERA of 3.86 though, so it's not like he was unhittable. He was just very electric, but still one of the most promising young pitchers. Then he unfortunately gets Tommy John surgery early last year. He's just now coming back, trying to get back to his old form. He's been good, just not quite to the same level. And he's now 26, about to be 27. So again, do you put him even higher because he is one of the most electric pitchers in this league? Or you could look at it the other way. He's a 27-year-old just coming off Tommy John surgery. Should he be a little bit lower until he proves otherwise? He's going to kind of get a category of himself. I think 24, ahead of some of the pitchers I mentioned, but still not quite up to the big superstars like he once was. So 24 seems like a good spot for him. Group G is one of the biggest ones I have, and I have this labeled as the next wave of stars. These are the young guys who are going to be the next wave. Not all of them are probably going to turn out, but a lot of these guys will be top 10, potentially top 5 players at some point. This first group, I have Yuri Perez at 23, Nick Kurtz at 22, and then Roman Anthony at 21. Yuri Perez, you might not remember, because again, he also had Tommy John surgery, but he's also 22 years old. This isn't like Spencer Strider, who's 27. Yuri Perez 2 years ago, when he was 20, started 19 games and had an ERA of 3.15 as a 20-year-old. He unfortunately gets Tommy John surgery, so I feel like a lot of people forgot about him. But he's back. He's starting to pitch a lot better more recently, and he's 22 years old. So I still think he's a rising star. Nick Kurtz, he obviously got really famous because he had potentially one of the best baseball games ever. Latest guy to hit 4 home runs, all of that. But he was rising up fast before that. When I first started this exercise, I had him down in the 40s, and I just kept moving him up, and I kept moving him up. And then he had a 4 home run game. I moved him up a little bit more. He is having an outstanding year. And Jacob Wilson kind of overshadowed him in the beginning. He is another athletics rookie who started off amazing. But if you look at Kurtz's stats, really only Aaron Judge can beat him. And he doesn't have quite as many at-bats as some guys, but he is having a legitimately good year. And if he continues, and if he has a great year next year, this is a potential top 5 trade value guy. He is only a first baseman. He's not going to contribute a ton else. But this kind of reminds me of like a Matt Olson when he came up with the Athletics, and potentially a supercharged Matt Olson, which is crazy because Matt Olson had 50 home run potential. Nick Kurtz might be just a slightly better version of that, which is scary. And then 21, Roman Anthony. He was the number 1 prospect in baseball based on, I think, most places. He started off really slow, and I mean started off as in the first couple weeks. Ever since then, he's been really good. And he seems like someone, unlike Kurtz, who could impact the game in a lot of ways. He's kind of one of those 5-tool players. He's going to hit for a good average. His on-base percentage, I think, is close to 400. He's going to give you good defense. He's going to give you good base running. There was a reason why he was the number one prospect in baseball, and I think he's showing it. So 21 and 22 for Kurtz might be the lowest they ever are. That's how fast they're going to rise. The next wave of young stars, 20, I have Jacob Mizorowski, 19, Junior Caminero, and 18, Jackson Churio. 3 more young guys who the sky is the limit. Jacob Mizorowski made headlines this year. He's the new Paul Skeens, the new Spencer Strider. He's electric. He may only just keep rising. Junior Caminero, he has 27 home runs this year. He's only 22 years old. He was in the home run derby. He's had a great year. Cleveland is definitely going to regret trading him. And then Jackson Churio at 18. Some people might not have him at the top of this list of just great young talent. But last year, he was 20 years old, and he had a 3.8 WAR season. And he's followed up with just as good of a year this year, and he's just turned 21. So he is only going to get better. He's one of the reasons why the Brewers are having a great year. Yes, he's only like a year younger than some of these guys, but still, I think what he's done at such a young age, I think he deserves this spot at 18. Group F, I have labeled pretty simply just very, very good players. And these 4 players, maybe not quite as young as some guys around this area, but they're just very, very good players. And at number 17, I have Garrett Crochet. I was concerned about him going into this year. I was concerned a little bit after the Red Sox traded for him. Not because I didn't think he was good. I just thought from a durability standpoint. But he's been great. He is an electric left-hander. 12.9 strikeouts per 9 last year. 11.1 this year. He leads the league in strikeouts. If he can stay healthy and on the field, he's an elite pitcher. And he will just stay up around this range. Number 16 is Jose Ramirez. He's 32. He's almost 33 years old. But he's been an MVP candidate for the last decade almost. He's just an elite player. And I don't care that he's 33 years old. He is still one of the best players. You know what you're going to get every year. If Cleveland wants to trade him, they're going to get a haul. They're going to get a crazy package. So yes, age, contract going against him a little bit. So that's why I have him down at 16. He would have been a top 10 player a few years ago. He's still very, very good. So I have him at 16. 15 is my number 1 catcher, and that is the big dumper, Cal Raleigh. Catchers, as I mentioned, is an interesting position to value. Because on the one hand, they're very, very valuable. If you have a good catcher, someone like a Cal Raleigh who can hit 41 home runs, who can steal 20 bases, who can be a platinum glove winning fielder, who can handle a pitching staff as great as the Mariners can be. That's a very, very elite player. Because not only can you get offense, but that affects the pitching staff, one of the most important defensive positions. So for that argument, you could argue that Cal is one of the most valuable players in the league. And for this year, he may literally win most valuable player. Only reason I have him 15th and not a little bit higher is one, he's almost 29, which isn't a bad thing. He's still got a few years in his prime left. But years in his prime for a catcher, a little bit shorter than some other players. And so that's when we're talking catchers. I said Will Smith is 30. It's not that old. But from a catching perspective, you're not expecting these guys to be catching really a lot at 35. And so I think span is a little bit different. And then for Cal, just if we're nitpicking, he's been a good hitter the last few years. He's an elite hitter now. If he has another elite season this upcoming year, I might vault him even higher. But I think I'll just give it a little bit, see if he can kind of continue. But still, 15, the top catcher, I think by far, Cal deserves to be up with these elite players. And then 14 is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I know the contract might be too much for some. He signed a $500 million deal, and we could get into kind of some semantics of Vlad Guerrero at $500 million, Juan Soto at $765 million. I get that, yes, both of those are huge contracts. I do think that Vladimir Guerrero's contract, which for the next few years is around like $40 million, and then it dips down into the high 30s. That's not as bad as the Juan Soto deal. That is a deal that a lot of teams, I think, could talk themselves into, even teams that don't spend a lot. So I don't think that's as big of a negative. And he's only 26. He has a little bit of inconsistency, but I think he's bounced back. He's still an elite hitter. I think he still deserves pretty high up on this list. Group E is a group that they might be young superstars, but I have question marks. But I think they're that good that they still deserve to be this high. Number 13 is Jackson Merrill. 12 is Gunnar Henderson. And 11 is Julio Rodriguez. Jackson Merrill is only 22 years old. He would have won Rookie of the Year last year if it wasn't for Paul Skeens. And I think he has the potential to just be a great player. He hasn't had that good of a year this year, though. And some of that I think we can blame on injuries, but just gave me enough hesitation that I didn't want to just give him a top 10 spot. I think for a lot of these guys, you got to prove it over at least a couple years before you can really be trusted. I think Jackson Merrill falls in that category. I do think he bounces back. I think he will be up near the top of this list for a while. Gunnar Henderson, a little bit older at 24, but in his age 23 season, he had a 9-win season. So he is an elite player. He gets overshadowed by a couple guys we'll mention. He's also having a slightly down year. And by down year, I mean he's batting .283. His OPS plus is only 129. 29% better than the average. So even in a down year, he's still great. He will be a top 10 player, I think, again. Just slightly down year. Orioles are just having a bad year in general. I think he's still an elite player. And then number 11 is a very controversial player, at least up here in Seattle, and that's Julio Rodriguez. I still think he's very valuable. He is not yet 25. He has had WAR seasons of 6.2, 5.5, 4.3, and then 4.3 as of now, and obviously counting. Yes, he is going downhill a little bit, but assuming he gets at least a 5-win season this year, he will have 3 out of his first 4 seasons as a 5-win player, and I don't think he's reached his potential. And so even if he doesn't improve, even if he still has his inconsistencies, his floor is essentially a 5-win player with now elite defense, potentially platinum glove winning center field. And that's really good as a 24, soon to be 25-year-old. And if he gets better, if he turns some of these hot streaks into just full seasons, he still has an MVP level ceiling. I think that part is probably not as realistic as it was when he first came up, but his floor is still really, really good. His ceiling is still really elite. So he is still one of the most valuable players in baseball, even if he has down years, even if he's a little bit frustrating. Number 10 is another single player group, and this is the Aaron Judge group. Aaron Judge, at first I had him near the top. He's far and away the best hitter in baseball. You can't argue it. However, there are enough points of concern that I did drop him down to 10. The first one is he's 33, not the oldest. I had Jose Ramirez. He's almost 33 as well. But Aaron Judge at 33, with his size, with his body type, with some of the injuries he's had, he's currently on the injured list right now. That's a little concerning. Now, does that mean he will not age gracefully? No, not necessarily. I could see 37-year-old Aaron Judge still hitting 50 home runs. But enough cause for concern that if we're talking trade value, I had to bump him down a little bit. So I put him at 10. You could argue he could be higher. You could argue he could be lower. I think he fits in right in this top 10 group. Group C, I've labeled still young, still elite. I have 2 guys. I have Fernando Tatis Jr. at number 9 and Ronald Acuna Jr. at number 8. These have been the top 2 guys for a while in terms of trade value rankings. They've been probably in the top 10 for a while, and I think they still deserve it because they're still young. They've been around forever, but Tatis is still only 26. Acuna is still only 27, and they're still really great players. Tatis, a little bit lower than he was maybe when he first came up, still an elite player. And then Ronald Acuna Jr., he may start falling down this list. As of recording this, he just went on the injured list with calf tightness or Achilles soreness. Either way, that's not great, especially for someone who's already had 2 ACL tears. 2 ACL tears, calf, Achilles concern before he's 28. That's not great. So he could start falling down this list, or his calf might be fine. He continues to be one of the best players in baseball, and he's still a top 10 trade value player. We don't know. As of right now, I think I'm good with him at 8. The second to last group is one of my biggest ones. These are just the young superstars. These are the best of the best. Group B. You could argue these in a few different order. I think, though, a lot of us would agree this is pretty much one of the top groups. Number 7, I have Elly De La Cruz. 6, I have James Wood. And 5, I have Pete Crow Armstrong. I've had my questions about Elly De La Cruz. I'm probably lower on him than some, but I think he's starting to answer a lot of those questions for me. He's batting .283 this year, so he's improved his batting average. We know he has the stolen base capability. He got 67 last year. I just always wanted to see more. And similar to like the O'Neal Cruz conversation, you can have all the tools, but I actually want to see it on the field. And he's starting to do that. Again, batting .283. He could have a 30-40 season. We know he has even more stolen bases in him. So he's turned into a really good player, and he's only 23. So he deserves in this group. James Wood at 6. He's got 24 home runs. His OPS plus is 145. He is only 22 years old, and he already looks like one of the best hitters in baseball. He has his flaws. He leads the league in strikeouts, but just based on the eye test, based on the stats that back it up, he looks like he's going to be one of the best hitters in baseball for a while. And I think everybody kind of agrees that. Some people may have him even higher than 6. I just have a few concerns, like kind of the chase numbers, the strikeout numbers. If he kind of gets those under control, we're talking like a Yordan Alvarez type player with a little bit more defense and speed. That's really, really good. So 6 might be his low point. And then PCA, he's having an MVP type season. He may not win it because of one kind of special player, but he's having an MVP caliber season at the age of 23. He's batting .268, 27 home runs, and 29 stolen bases already. So he has the potential to go 40-40, whether it's this year or years in the future. And he has elite defense. Like we're talking potentially platinum glove winning center fielder at some point. That has the making for just the number one player in baseball and the number one trade value player. I do want to see it for one more year. I want to see him get those chase numbers, those strikeout numbers a little bit better, similar to James Wood. But if he puts this together for a few years, we're talking potentially the number one player in baseball. That's why Cubs fans are so excited. And it's worthwhile. We just want to see it for a few more years. Related to that, number 4, I have Corbin Carroll. There's potential that both PCA and James Wood pass Corbin Carroll. And we're nitpicking. We're at the best of the best. Arizona fans, don't get mad. But the reason I have Corbin Carroll at 4 now is I've seen a little bit more of a track record for him. Yes, he struggled a little bit last year, but he bounced back. He's always going to lead the league in triples. He's going to give you 20 home runs on top of that. He's only 24 years old. He is one of the elite players in baseball. And as I mentioned, he has the track record, so I have him at 4. He might fall a little bit as some of these guys maybe move past him, but he's an elite player, and he's shown that again this year. Number 3, I have Paul Skeens. Clearly the best value for a pitcher. He's probably the best pitcher. Tarek Skubal, he would have a pretty big conversation in that as well. But if we're talking value, Paul Skeens is far and away the best. He had a 1.96 ERA last year as a rookie, and we thought, it's not really going to get better than that. Well, his ERA is 1.83 so far this year, and I don't know what the ceiling for him is at this point. He's only 23. He just turned 23. He's going to have an ERA probably in the ones for his first couple years. If he gets better, I don't know what to do. I don't know how much farther I can push him up. If he continues this for a few years, even as a pitcher with all the risk they have, he might be the number one player on this ranking at some point. Does he stay in Pittsburgh? That's the question. But he's an elite player. We don't need to really talk much more about him. Number 2, I have Bobby Witt Jr. I still have him as the top in this group, and you can argue that, but he is 25 years old. He batted .332 last year, had a 30-30 season, 9.4 WAR last year. Again, would have been MVP if it wasn't for Aaron Judge. He started a little bit slow this year, but he's still only 25. He's still having a great year for pretty much any other standard. I think he has the track record. I think he has the ceiling. He has the floor. He has it all. I have him as my number 2 ranked player. And I think he will be until maybe somebody just overpasses him. But to me, Bobby Witt Jr. still is the clear number 2. And then that brings me to my number 1 player. And of course, you know him. That is Shohei Ohtani at number 1. Now, I mentioned at the top when I was talking about Juan Soto, and I said, 70 million, that's just too much. Nobody's going to trade for that. And I said, for a player to be paid 70 million for other teams outside of the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Giants, for pretty much any other team to trade for a player to make $70 million, you better have a very special reason for a team to take on that contract. And I said, as great as Juan Soto is, I don't think he has that. If you want to say the Mariners, my team up here in Seattle, Mariners don't spend money. We wanted Juan Soto. There was no way we were going to get him. If the Mets offered him to us, they said, hey, we're not going to take anything. Just take Juan Soto. Mariners would probably say no. We just can't spend $70 million. That's just me as a Mariners fan speculating, but I'm sure there's 25 other teams, 25 other fan bases that kind of get that sentiment. But I said, if there's a player that has special reason to pay $70 million, then it's less of a factor. And I was basically talking about Shohei Ohtani. Because yes, you have to pay him $70 million a year, or I get it's deferred. It's all complicated. I'm just going to call it $70 million a year, but it's different when it's Ohtani, because $70 million a year, you would make that up in just any sort of revenue, whether that's revenue coming from Japan, the popularity of Ohtani. I think any team would convince themselves, yes, we're going to pay Ohtani $70 million, and we would do whatever we can to do that because of what he brings. And that's where this kind of hidden fifth rule or fifth logic in this trade value list is kind of the outstanding factors, the off the field factors. Because yes, they do matter. Yes, it matters a little bit just how popular a player is. And I think Ohtani fits that well. And that's not to say he's not a great player. We all know he's a great player. Back-to-back MVPs. Last year, he led the league in runs, home runs, RBIs, slugging, OPS, OPS plus, total bases. He has a 1.5 ERA this year. His career ERA is 2.97. So if he gets back on the mound full time, we don't need to talk about it. He's just a historic player we've never seen. I don't care that his contract's $70 million. I think every team would want him. And so for that reason, I think he's number 1 on this list. He is 31, so I don't know how long he has left as my number 1 player, but for now, I think he's pretty clear than the number 1 player in my trade value rankings. So that was all 50 of them. Let's throw them up one more time on the screen. My top 50 players based on trade value. There's going to be probably question marks. I'm sure there's going to be people that can nitpick here and there. One thing that I will say to end, this list is kind of a snapshot in time. It is meant to change, not dramatically. I don't want to overreact every time I update it. Again, I'm going to update it probably come MLB off season. If a player has a really good year or a really bad year, I'm not going to just dramatically jump them up or take them off, but it is a snapshot in time. And so for guys like Shohei Ohtani, right now he's the number 1 player, and it kind of encapsulates what we're thinking in this time. So it's a snapshot in time. You can have nitpicks. Things will change. When we update it in the off season, things will change. And that's just the nature of lists, the nature of trade value rankings. So as I mentioned at the top, if you want to see any updates, make sure to subscribe. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe. I'm just starting to build this channel. I want to do things like this. So if you're interested, you want to see future updates, if you want to see other sports trade value lists, if you want to see just a whole bunch of stuff, I'm going to be doing lots of stuff on this channel. This isn't just a trade value specific channel. Lots of upcoming things. So if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. Plenty more things coming throughout this summer. And I will be back this off season for an update. And throughout the summer, plenty more stuff to come. So my first iteration of MLB Trade Value Rankings are done, and we will see you in the next video.